what if the president dies in the strike and before we've made a counterattack?
Which is something that Stratcom thinks about, and it's certainly why I have that in the scenario. Because if the president is the only one that can order a counterattack, that can launch nuclear weapons, what if he dies? And so I learned in the reporting that if you're the president, let's say he even gives the order, okay, here's my counterstrike, I'm choosing this from the black book. The command and control is set up that if the president orders 82 nuclear weapons in response, you can't launch 83 nuclear weapons. It's 82 and 82 only. And then to do another launch requires passwords. It requires so much bureaucracy. There's not time for that. And so there's this almost unknown little detail inside of the nuclear command and control apparatus called a universal unlock code, which I learned about in the book. And the eyebrow goes up for exactly that reason, as did mine when wait, what? And then you find out that the president can release to the Stratcom commander the universal unlock code, which basically says, okay, if I die, you have permission to launch nuclear weapon number 83 or nuclear weapon number 5,000, all the way up. And that is a pretty shocking concept.
The president responds to the nuclear attack, hits, I don't know, let's say they hit Russia. They send the submarines out to send the ICBMs or whatever it's called to strike Russia. Russia have these submarines as well. They send more back. What's the aftermath of nuclear, that 70-second minute? Because I imagine from the minute the president hears that, gets the notification that it's been confirmed, it's had the second confirmation, he's going to make the decision to fire nuclear weapons back, I assume. And then from there, it's just all fire, as far as I'm concerned.
There's a concept called jamming the president, which is, so the president learns in the scenario I write that North Korea has fired a ballistic missile, and then a second one comes in from a sub and hits a nuclear power plant in California.
Why did you pick North Korea?
I picked North Korea because of my interviews with Richard Garwin, the designer of the thermonuclear bomb, the first one, which he designed for Teller. Because in our interviews, I asked him what scared me most. Garwin, also in his 90s, has advised every president of the United States since Eisenhower. He was an early founder of NRO. One of our most classified agencies. His opinion matters. And while he didn't want to be specific, he gave me sort of a very interesting, almost poetic metaphor when he spoke of the Mad King. And the Mad King with a nuclear arsenal. And he even used that French phrase, après moi le déluge. This idea of after me, the flood. If I die, who cares? And I interpreted that Garwin was talking about North Korea, because North Korea is the rogue nuclear-armed nation that regularly sets off ballistic missiles and doesn't tell anyone. There is an unspoken reality among the other nations that you inform people when you're going to test an ICBM with a dummy warhead, of course. North Korea doesn't adhere to that. So, when I interviewed people who are in those command and control bunkers, those first 100 seconds we spoke of where the ballistic missile is on its way, and all of that command and control is focused on, is this coming at us? Or is it as launching a space satellite? Or is it going into the Sea of Japan? That's what North Korea does. They don't announce those tests. And so imagine the anxiety in those command bunkers every time they launch a ballistic missile. They have launched more than 100 ballistic missiles in an 18-month period from 2022 forward.
Testing.
Okay, testing. So this is so dangerous and so rogue. If there, on the one hand, I say there are no rules to nuclear war, but there are a few rules to nuclear deterrence, like you tell your neighbors. And that's why I chose North Korea. But just to finish the sequence, the president launches 82 missiles at North Korea in a counterattack. And in the scenario that I write, the failure now becomes about miscommunication, a very important concept, and also about technology not working. And I source in the book precisely where this information comes from. So Russia misinterprets our launching nuclear weapons at North Korea as being launched at Russia. Why? Because, actual fact, our ICBMs do not have enough range to travel to North Korea without overflying Russia. And so imagine in a climate like now, with hostilities as an all-time high, the Russian president just saying, okay, well, maybe they're not coming for us. And nuclear policy, the policy of deterrence, is you launch if someone's launching at you. And so that is where, you know, in the second act of the book, it's 24 minutes, 24 minutes, 24 minutes, endgame. Russia launches. And Russia launches, you don't launch, if someone's attacking you with nuclear missiles, you don't launch one or two back. That's Mad King logic. You launch the mother load. And that's what I have Russia launch in this scenario.
What do you mean Mad King logic?
Well, Mad King logic is, why would you do that?
Yeah.
Okay. So in the Mad King logic of the book, the leader of North Korea, who is nameless, launches a nuclear weapon at the United States for reasons we don't know. And we will never know, because history will end. The ability to write history ends in 72 minutes of the book. So we will never know why. And that is the sort of, question. Mad King logic is very different than Defense Department logic, or in many regards, Russian nuclear command and control logic, which I interview sort of the world's expert on those subjects to be able to, give readers quickly an idea of what that logic is and why it has held for 79 years.
Can't we just shoot it out the sky?
That is the great fantasy that is a fallacy, right? So let's talk numbers for a second. America has 1,770 nuclear weapons on ready for launch status. They're deployed, okay? They can launch in seconds, minutes. Maybe some of the bombers take an hour or two. Russia has roughly the same. 1,674. That's the parity of the nuclear treaties. That says nothing of the thousands more that we each have in reserve. But those are actual nuclear weapons that are pointed at one another, ready to go. Ready to go, okay? So those numbers. The U.S. has an interceptor program to allegedly intercept a long-range ballistic missile. I'm not talking about short range or even medium range, long range, like that would come from Russia or North Korea. We have 44 interceptor missiles. 4 of them are at Vandenberg Air Force Base in Santa Barbara. 40 of them are at Fort Greely in Alaska. 44. So if Russia has 1,670 nuclear weapons, how are our 44 interceptors going to go up against those? And that says nothing, by the way, and I get into this in sort of the little bit of the wonkiness. Inside a nuclear warhead, many of them are what are called MIRVed, which means they have multiple warheads inside of it. And so when the warhead unleashes, the multiple warheads go out along with decoys, so that if an interceptor missile is coming at it, it greatly reduces the chance that the interceptor will be able to shoot it out of the sky. The way that it was said to me was like this. An interceptor missile, which is basically just like a small ICBM, right? It's a rocket. It is like trying to shoot a bullet with a bullet. That's a quote from the spokesperson at the Pentagon. One of them is traveling at 14,000 miles an hour, the ballistic missile, 14,000 miles an hour. The interceptor, the little kinetic vehicle inside of it that's going to hit the warhead, hopefully, is traveling at 20,000 miles an hour. That's where you get the trying to hit a bullet with a bullet. And by the way, this is all happening 500 miles up in space. Good luck. The success rate of our interceptor program is between 40 and 55%. That's on a good day where they're testing these things and they go, hey, we're doing an interceptor test. It might be around there, right? That's called a curated test. That's not in the madness of the moment.
If you love the Diary of a CEO brand and you watch this channel, please do me a huge favor. Become part of the 15% of the viewers on this channel that have hit the subscribe button. It helps us tremendously, and the bigger the channel gets, the bigger the guests.